There was a point in time where Sega was slapping Nintendo around like my wife slaps my fat hairy balls. During its life cycle and into the future, the Genesis turned out to be Sega's biggest success, at least when it comes to hardware sales. There are a bunch of those mini Genesis things on the market with Sega's blessing, as well as a ton of compilation games, which goes to show just how much demand there is for 16-bit nostalgia. Some of them are complete shit though. You can easily predict what titles are going to be on every one of these things. Sonic games, Columns, Streets of Rage, and all the other greatest hits. These games are all-time classics, but I think the Genesis is also home to a bunch of titles that never make it onto these consoles and compilations. So in this video, I'm going over the top 10 Sega Genesis hidden gems. Battlemania Daiginjo opens with a cutscene very reminiscent of the Porygon episode that caused all those kids to have seizures. So that's good. Released exclusively in Japan, Battlemania is a vertical and horizontal shooter made by the same guys that made Clash of Demon Head, so you know you're in for a trip. You play as a pair of anime girls flying around shooting everybody in the face, whether they deserve it or not. There are various power-ups to collect as you play. Some alter your move speed and others buff your weapon damage, its size, and number of projectiles. You get a rank after each stage based on your performance, and surprisingly there's a cutscene between every stage as well. Something you rarely saw on 16-bit consoles. Battlemania's soundtrack is easily one of its highlights. It uses the Genesis' unique fart-sounding low tones to great effect, creating some thick and girthy grooves as well as some catchy earworm melodies. This game is actually a sequel to a game called Troubleshooter North America. I guess Vic Tokai thought the sequel was too good for the West, so unfortunately we never got an official translation. There are fan translations of Battlemania all over the internet, so I highly recommend checking it out in English. High Seas Havoc is the best furries had before the internet made it acceptable to want to fuck animals. You play as Havoc, an anthropomorphized seal on a quest to save his two dumb friends after they got kidnapped by the big bad guy. The 16-bit era was filled with mascot platformers, but most of them ended up being bland attempts to cash in on Sonic's popularity. High Seas Havoc stands out by being one of the most enjoyable and solid platformers in a massive sea of platformers. It doesn't try to copy Sonic's speed or attitude or have any notable gimmick at all. The levels are well designed and paced. There's no leaps of faith or beginner trap deaths. It also has, at least in my opinion, some of the best visuals on the Genesis. It has a nearly oversaturated color palette. The entire screen is super bright. Sprite work is excellent, with Havoc in particular being well animated and expressive. There are some really impressive enemy sprites as well, particularly the bosses. Each stage has its own unique visual themes that set them apart. This is high praise, but I place High Seas Havoc among Sonic 2 and 3 in terms of platforming goodness. Mystic Defender is a pretty early release for the Genesis, developed by Sega themselves. You play as a sorcerer named Joe, who can cast lightning bolts and shit. A bad guy named Zareth kidnaps your cum dumpster and it's all up to you to rescue her. This is a side-scrolling run and gun where you start with one chargeable spell as your primary attack, but you can acquire other spells like this pointable fire snake and magical game spheres that bounce off walls. You also have a screen-clearing panic button in the form of its dragon that kills all enemies and their projectiles. There's a disgusting H.R. Geiger-inspired alien-looking level, which is kinda cool. The biggest issue with Mystic Defender is its length, something I've been told many times. You can beat this game in maybe 40 minutes or so, depending on how much trouble it gives you, and it's not overly difficult. It is, however, an excellent run-and-gun action game that gets overshadowed by the big boys like Gunstar Heroes, but it definitely deserves a spot as one of the best of its kind on the Genesis. Valis 3 is actually a slightly pared-back port of the TurboGrafx CD original. You play as Yuko, a 90s anime schoolgirl on a quest to defeat the bad guy, King Anus, who won't put his goddamn cock away. You're joined by two other characters named Valna and Cam, who are both playable with their own upgradable weapons and abilities. You can freely switch between all three during gameplay, save for a few stages where you're locked as Yuko. The game features some rudimentary cutscenes between stages that are stripped back from its original to work on the Genesis, but it's still cool to see the Sailor Moon-like 90s anime style on the console. These also vary slightly depending on which character you clear the stage as. Valis 3 is one of those very Japanese games that maybe didn't resonate very well in the West at the time it released, but it's a great action platformer that doesn't get brought up much compared to the rest of the Genesis library. Granada is a top-down shooter originally developed for the X86,000, later ported to the Genesis. Set in the far future year of 2016, you play as a mech pilot named Leon Kennedy tasked with stopping a mining rights war in Mother Africa. You're plopped into a level with the freedom to destroy targets in any order you want. Enemies are shown as red dots on a mini-map on the bottom right of the screen. After all regular enemies are destroyed, you face the level's boss. Bosses are generally the highlight. They have big, well-animated sprites and are fun to fight. There are several power-ups scattered around stages that improve your ships, shields, and boomerang bullets. Granada got positive reviews all over the place when it originally came out, so it's a wonder that it doesn't get brought up as often as it deserves. Alicia Dragoon is one of the very few action platformer RPGs on the Genesis. Plays Alicia, a waifu on a quest to save her deadbeat dad using her shocker abilities. What sets this game apart from other platformers is its focus on exploration, rather than just running in one direction to reach the end of the stage. Every level is filled with max health and damage upgrades. The game is already really difficult, so upgrading your character through exploration is almost required. You can also recruit 4 different types of flying cat companions to help you on your way. You can switch between them at any time, and like the main character, they can also upgrade their health and damage. I don't know why Alicia Dragoon isn't held in the same regard as other action platformers like the Shinobi series. It's tough, has a waifu, and solid gameplay. Devilish, the next possession, seems like such an obvious concept. I'm surprised it hasn't been refined and expanded upon further by now. There's a prince and princess experimenting with pegging, and a bad guy named Y conveniently turns them into stone paddles, which just so happens to be the exact thing they need to be to defeat him. Devilish is like an adventure mode for Breakout. Instead of sitting on a static screen and bouncing your tiny ball all around, you actually progress through stages, each with their own enemies, gimmicks, and bosses. You control both paddles at once, but the top one can be moved up and down independently, as well as rotated to change which direction you want to smack your ball. You get items throughout the stages that give benefits such as wider paddles, a bomb that clears a bunch of blocks and enemies, or a 10-second pause of the stage timer. Devilish is a concept with a lot of potential. I can see a game like this reimagined as a roguelike with persistent upgrades. But until then, this game remains unique to the Genesis. Ranger X has everything I absolutely love in video games. You play as a cool-looking giant robot with a big-ass gun and a motorcycle. The only thing missing is big booty Latinas. This game is easily one of the best controlling games on the Genesis. Older games tend to feel less refined when you revisit them, but Ranger X still feels great to play. Every stage has a distinct visual theme and sets of enemies completely unique to that particular stage. Visually speaking, Ranger X is one of the most graphically intensive games on the Genesis. Gameplay and scrolling is fast, with tons of enemy sprites and effects on screen. The bosses in particular are impressive, featuring huge sprites split up into different limbs that animate independently to create great movement effects. Visuals come at the cost of some pretty nasty slowdown in some parts, which is typical of the console's most demanding games. Ranger X feels like it could have released today by an indie developer. A testament to how well it holds up. Crusader of Senti is Legend of Zelda at home on the surface. In this world, people are little bitches, so when boys reach the age of 14, they're sent out to fight monsters. Then the townsfolk sacrifice their bodies to the corn. You play as one such little cuck who inherits his father's sword and shield so he can go die on the same stupid quest. This game gets compared to Zelda a lot, and that's fair enough. It does do some things different though. The main character loses his ability to speak to humans early in the game, but gains the ability to speak to plants and animals. Using this ability, he can recruit numerous animal friends that help with solving certain puzzles or exploring the game world. Crusader of Senti is a really solid action-adventure game that just fell by the wayside. Maybe it's because it released so late into the Genesis lifecycle. Physical cartridges for the game, particularly the North American ones, have gotten really expensive over the years, so get your stupid parrot on your shoulder and sail the high seas to enjoy this title. Blades of Vengeance somehow managed to slip through my crack despite being easily one of the most solid action platformers on the Genesis. Play as one of 3 characters, each with their own attributes. The Huntress is a sexy grandma with the fastest move speed in the game and decent range to her attacks. The Warrior is a big beefy boy with high damage but low move speed and short range. The Sorcerer is a frail old Nosferatu but can keep himself far from danger with his long-ranged offense. Levels are large and encourage exploration since there's no time limit, and the treasure you collect can be used at a shop you visit after boss fights, allowing you to upgrade your armor and buy new weapons, which can completely change how a character works. The novelty of points actually being used for something and each character playing so differently makes Blades of Vengeance a solid action platformer even today. That's my list of the top 10 Sega Genesis hidden gems. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.